I have a question about what is the Senate going to do to stop the continued runaway spending and the inflation it causes?
Okay, great question. Congress has been operating for years now on a runaway system that depends on a mechanism called the continuing resolution. A continuing resolution is basically a legislative reset button that says we're going to keep spending what we were spending last year, only we're going to increase it a little bit for inflation or because of this or that need that has arisen in government. As a result of operating on the basis of continuing resolutions, Congress is always spending more and it almost never spends less. We've got to get back to what's called a regular order budgeting process, where Congress passes a budget, and after it passes a budget, it passes at least a dozen separate spending bills, each funding a different area of government. One funding military spending, for example, one funding our criminal justice systems, another one funding national parks and things like that, so that we incrementally fund the government and we evaluate at each stage, each program within government to decide what ought to be funded and what shouldn't. For the last 6.5 years, we've been operating without this. Now, Congress did pass a budget this year for the first time in 6 years. The last time that Congress had passed a budget, there was no such thing as the iPad. We did pass one this year. The problem is we haven't passed regular order spending bills. We've been trying to bring them up on the floor of the Senate. Each time we brought them up, Harry Reid and my Democratic colleagues have combined their votes in order to block consideration of those bills, and we haven't been able to get onto them. We've got to get away from that in order to get our spending under control. I also believe, Gordon, that we need to pass a balanced budget amendment to the U.S. Constitution. I've authored a balanced budget amendment that would make it more difficult for Congress to borrow money, recognizing that borrowing large sums of money and transferring that debt onto future generations amounts to a really ugly form of taxation without representation. And as you know, we fought a war over that, and we won that war. We shouldn't retreat to that barbaric practice. And so it's a combination of budgeting, passing spending bills in regular order, and adopting structural spending reform mechanisms like a balanced budget amendment that will control the runaway spending process that you're understandably so concerned about.